Yeah, I need to adjust that. That's that wants to work. All right, hello and welcome to another episode of Ether Cosmology. Tonight, Toby and I are going to be reading some Ruyong Wang. I'm going to join the panel tonight. I'm going to join the panel right now, and we're going to get into it. All right, Toby.
Excellent. I am now also streaming. So, if you are tuning in, thank you for joining us for reading and research night. Although the last couple of weeks we've done things a little bit differently. We had a couple of mini presentations, and we kind of just did some open discussion and minor research in that way. Tonight we're going to go back to reading a paper, and we're going to read a paper of a collaboration between two people that I would call legends, Ron Hatch and Ruyong Wang. So yeah, just if you're not familiar, when we do these nights on Thursdays, it's literally us doing research, us doing reading, us highlighting papers. And so if you're not ready to sit and listen to an academic paper, this might not be for you, but we're just trying to give a glimpse into the way that we do things. And it's also, there are maybe some people out there that are interested in this approach. So in any case, let's go ahead and get into it. Before we do start, does anyone over on Discord have anything they want to say or any thoughts, questions about the paper or anything?
Does it get any better than that? Than that?
Cool. All right. I actually just needed a second. Anyways, actually, I still need one more second because I'm going to take a quick drink of water before I start reading.
Than that.
What's the paper
Cool.
on?
It's called Conducting a Crucial Experiment of the Constancy of Speed of Light Using GPS. So essentially, I really don't know a lot about this paper. I'm kind of going into it blind. But I have looked at, Alan has gone very deep into this paper, Relativity in the Global Positioning System from Ashby. So they have comments on that. And it sounds like basically, I'm assuming that they are looking at this paper and saying, all right, well, then we can just do some experiments using GPS to, really drive home the point of this. So let's go ahead and get into it. Biographies. Ruyong Wang graduated from Beijing University of Aeronautics and Aerospace. He worked in the Institute of Mechanics, Chinese Academy of Sciences. Currently, he works in St. Cloud State University. He has been interested in special relativity, especially its crucial experiments, for a long time, and published several papers on this topic. Ronald Hatch received his Bachelor of Science degree in Physics and Math in 1962 from Seattle Pacific University. He worked at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, Boeing, and Magnavox before he worked for a time as a GPS consultant. In 1994, he joined Jim Litton, KT Wu, and Jalal Ali Subhani in starting what is now Navcom Technology Incorporated, which, if you look them up now, they are still owned. Looks like all they really do at this point is some kind of satellites for John Deere, of all companies. John Deere owns whatever GPS work Ron Hatch built, interestingly. Anyways, so Navcom, he served as a number of roles within the Institute of Navigation, including chair of the satellite division. So obviously, the dude is pretty familiar with what's going on with GPS. He is currently finishing a one-year term as president of the ION, which was the Institute of Navigation. Ron has received the Johannes Kepler Award from Satellite Division and the Colonel Thomas Thurlow Award from the Institute of Navigation. He's also a fellow of the Institute of Navigation. He has been awarded 12 patents, either as inventor or co-inventor. Most of the patents relate to GPS. I didn't realize that. Contrary to the assertion of special relativity, The speed of light is not always constant relative to a moving observer. The global positioning system shows that the speed of light in the Earth-centered inertial frame, or non-rotating frame, remains at c relative to the frame, but not relative to what an observer or a receiver moving in that frame. When a GPS receiver changes its translational speed relative to the ECI frame, the speed of light is measured relative to the receiver changes. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. A crucial experiment of the constancy of the speed of light relative to a moving receiver could be conducted in the following way. Let 2 GPS satellites and 2 airplanes be positioned in a straight... This is such a Wang paper. When was this written? Oh, the guy cracks me up. He's just right into like... Oh, I should have known this was going to be a good paper.
He
Okay,
just gets right into it.
He just gets right into it. He's just like, all right, relativists, let's do it. Let's try this way out.
Suppose we got 2 airplanes.
Let the 2 airplanes travel at the same speed directly toward one of the 2 satellites and directly away from the other satellite. The travel time differences of GPS signals arriving at the 2 airplanes is measured and recorded with the airplanes flying first toward one of the satellites and then flying the opposite direction toward the other satellite. You know what's like also funny about this is he puts these ideas forward. And to those that don't know, we've looked at numerous of Wang's papers. Actually, next Tuesday we're going to talk a lot about all of his works. But this is the 3rd paper of his that we've gone through now, where he's just putting forth a theoretical way that you could, or the 3rd or 4th paper we've read now, where he's just putting forth like a theoretical way in which you could prove or disprove special relativity. And from our perspective, it's always like, wow, this is crazy. Obviously, he knows what how this would work out because he's already done it in experimentation in the lab when he linearized it in 2003, 2004, the Sagnac effect. But if anyone actually believed in special relativity and thought it was truly covariant, well, then you would grab what Wang and Hatch are putting forth right here, and you'd say, oh, let's grab this and run with it. And let's prove these dorks wrong, show them that special relativity is, has more predictive value than their classical crap. So, let's grab this and run with it. But that's never what happens. Relativists would never touch this experiment with a 30-foot pole. So, yeah. Let's go back to that. Yeah. Arriving at the 2 airplanes is measured and recorded with airplanes flying fast first towards one of the satellites and then flying the opposite direction toward the other satellite. The travel time distances obtained as the airplanes fly in opposite directions are compared. If the travel time difference is the same when the velocity of the airplanes is changed, then the speed of light is indeed constant relative to the moving airplanes. Otherwise, it is not. No. It's constant, trust me. The calculation using the GPS range equation and the results of the real-time kinematic differential GPS test have shown that the constancy of the speed of light relative to moving airplanes is not correct. The change of the time difference could reach about 10 nanoseconds for subsonic airplanes and 30 nanoseconds for supersonic airplanes. Oh, interesting. Actually going to highlight that too. The result of this crucial experiment is not only important scientifically, but also indicates the possibility of a new way to directly measure vehicle speed relative to the ECI frame. That's interesting. The principle of the constancy of the speed of light asserts that in vacuum, light always has a definite speed of propagation that is independent of the motion of the observer. That is, no matter whether the observer is moving or at rest, and no matter how fast the observer is moving, 0.00001 c or 0.9999999 c, the speed of light is always c. This assertion is in fact the most controversial part of special relativity. Relativistic physics claim that people who refuse to accept the constancy of the speed of light simply cannot give up their common sense acquired through slow speed cannot give up their common sense acquired through slow speed experiences. However, this is not true. Human beings are intelligent and they are flexible as well. Once people have been exposed to solid experimental facts, they are willing to adopt new ideas. The common sense that a falling body descends at a rate that is proportional to its weight has changed to the common sense that if there is no air resistance, all bodies fall at the same rate. This change in perception is a direct result of the experimental data. The reason some people do not believe in the constancy of the speed of light relative to a moving observer is in fact that there are experimental facts which indicate otherwise. Go ahead and highlight that too. That's why every time someone's like, "Oh, I found you some special relativity or general relativity proof," I'm like, "Please, let's take a look." Because usually it's the opposite. One of the few experiments which directly supports the constancy of the speed of light relative to a moving observer is the Michelson-Morley type experiment. However, there are some unique features of the Michelson-Morley experiment which do not apply to GPS type experiments. First, the Michelson-Morley experiment is a function of the round trip two-way speed of light. This means that is a second order measurement, i.e., the possible time difference in the two light paths is proportional v over c squared. Second, the distance the light path travels is determined by a physical structure which is also moving at the same velocity. Clearly, if movement causes a length contraction in the direction of the motion, as Fitzgerald and Lorentz postulated, then the Michelson-Morley experiment would yield null results even when the speed of light is not affected by motion. Moreover, there are some experiments, such as the Sagnac experiment, which yield different results. In the GPS system, when the observer is moving relative to the center of the Earth, the speed of light relative to that observer is not equal to c. The truth can only be determined. Go ahead and just highlight that too, I guess. Why not? Whoops. Why are you not? There we go. The truth can only be determined by experiment. Today, the global positioning system provides us with a very big laboratory, a global laboratory, for experiments regarding the speed of light. We do not need the imaginary. Oh no, my stream just disconnected. Are you kidding me? Hold on, I'm gonna. Can you guys still hear me?
Yep. Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, I'm gonna start another stream real quick. Sorry, it's gonna take just a second. That's really frustrating.
Yep, no worries, bro. Yeah, so what we're going to find here, apparently GPS works like the accuracy and how it derives distance is it shows that electromagnetic propagation is relative, like its speed is relative to the observer. Which is explicitly what Einstein says how it shouldn't work.
All right, just one more second. Wait, I don't know what the heck just happened. Whoops. Okay, so I believe I am live again. If you were listening, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. And for everyone in Discord, thanks for bearing with me. So let's get back into this paper. So in this paper, we propose a crucial experiment to examine the constancy of the speed of light relative to a moving observer. However, we wish to first comment on some claims recently presented in a paper by Ashby. According to that paper, the only reason that GPS does not confirm the constancy of the speed of light relative to a moving receiver is that the receiver is moving relative to a circular path, or that the consumption or the computation is done in a rotating coordinate frame. We disagree with his claims. GPS and the constancy of the speed of light. The operations of GPS navigation are based.
we disagree. We're gonna go ahead and disagree with that, dude.
Dude, why is Adobe being a little twerp? There we go. The operations of GPS navigation are based on the propagation delay equation in the Earth-centered inertial rotating frame, or non-rotating frame. Here, T sub S is the instant of transmission of the signal from the source, and T sub R is the instant of reception at the receiver. R sub S times T sub S is the position of the source at the transmission time. So TS, instant of transmission. TR, instant of reception. Okay. RSTS, position of the source at the transmission time. Okay. And RRTR is the position of the receiver at the reception time. Okay. Got it.
Yep.
Ashby said that the propagation delay equation is a simple application of the principle of the constancy of the speed of light. Wolf and Pettit concluded that if the equation is correct, special relativity is correct. Are these true?
Now, keep in mind, does it? Have you read through this yet?
No.
Okay, so I don't know if he's going to get into who Wolf and Pettit are and what they concluded, but those are the two lads that went to Colorado to get the raw GPS data and did their analyzation of, they went looking for the anisotropy of light and they found it, but the data was already corrected for the Sagnac effect. So I guess
I knew I knew those
I
names.
guess their conclusion was, invalidated by the fact that there were first order velocity corrections to the speed of light applied.
It's
But
already corrected to make
yeah,
GPS work.
dude, and then they were like, "Oh, nothing to see here, lads. We're anisotropy located, or not anisotropy, isotropy." Yeah,
Isotropy.
yeah, dude, so crazy. Yep.
So
But yeah, so the range measurement equation, to be clear on what it is, it's just a snapshot of the location of when the signal was sent and the time difference of when it was received multiplied by c, and that's how they're getting their distances. So it's a time interval instead of looking at like a distance measurement of like, like it just doesn't derive distance the normal way. So this is a time interval system based on a ratio with c.
it's a good diagram. So let us express the propagation delay equation completely. Measured in the ECI frame, the speed of light is isotropic and is equal to c. Light wave is a spherical wave, no matter whether the source or the receiver is moving relative to the ECI frame or not. On the surface, this looks like the constancy of the speed of light because only c appears in the equation. However, the assertions that the speed of light is constant in just one inertial frame, the ECI frame, really is not what the constancy of the speed of light means. Ooh, beautifully said.
What are you saying? There's a little mathematical trickery in there, Wang?
Let us first consider the propagation of sound in the air. When the disturbance caused by the motion of the source and the receiver can be neglected, measured in a frame stationary in the air, the propagation of sound wave is isotropic with the speed of sound a spherical wave. We have the propagation delay equation for sound in the frame of the air. It looks really similar to the other one, but yeah, we have a times t sub r minus t sub s.
It's
Obviously, the equation is the same as GPS propagation delay equation, except there is a constant speed of sound A instead of the constant speed of light C. No, speed of sound's not constant. Come on, guys. I think Hatch and Wang must be wrong. Sorry. Anyways, do we have a principle of the constancy of speed of sound because the constant speed of sound A appearing in the propagation delay equation? No, we do not. Contrarily, we say that the speed of sound is not independent of the motion of the receiver observer. Why? In fact, when we judge whether the speed of sound is or is not independent of the motion of the observer, the speed of sound is measured from the frame of the observer, not the frame of the air. From the physics textbook, we can find these. The fact that the speed of light is independent of the motion of the source is not at all troublesome, but it is also independent of the motion of the detector, i.e., the observer. Actually, I'm going to highlight this.
that's a pretty actually that whole analogy with the sound is really good, man. So he just took
It is,
he just
especially
he,
with the equation,
yeah, and then
like
he
showing it. Yeah.
and yeah, and you can also apply that to sonar and sound waves. He gives it the same analogy in another paper where the propagation is relative to the speed of the observer in the medium. So if if electromagnetic propagation is relative to the velocity of the observer, there must be a medium that all motion is relative to. Like if you can spot the flaw in the logic there, like let me know. Works for sound,
Right here.
works for water. Well,
Yep.
when the sound is in the water, when the sound is in the air, it's literally same equation.
Actually, I want this to be orange. Sorry, just fixing my highlights here. There we go. Okay. Certainly, the speed of sound is not. That will be red. If the detector rushes toward the source, moving with respect to the air, the measured speed of sound increases.
What?
No way. Just imagine two identical ships. Well, but sound's not, you know, sound's not the, what do they call it? The apex predator. Light is the apex predator in the world of propagation.
The prop world.
Everything must bend and warp around it. Just imagine two identical ships headed toward a motionless sound emitting buoy, one steaming along. It's just another hilarious example. This is so good. One steaming along at full speed and the other dead in the water. On both ships, the time it takes a blast of sound to sweep from one bow to stern is measured, and the speed of the wave is computed in that inertial system. Clearly, for the ship moving towards the buoy, that time will be shorter. During the interval it takes the sound to traverse the ship, the stern will advance somewhat toward the pulse, shortening the effective length. Bad. And the wave speed will be determined to be faster. Wait, what? And the wave speed will be determined to be faster. Okay, my bad. So then further down here, we have a figure 3, the propagation of sound. So this is showing what he just described. Yeah, so because it moved closer during the propagation, it's measured as faster. Clearly measured in the frame of the air, the sound wave propagates with a constant speed of a for both ships, no matter whether the ship is moving or at rest. However, measured in the frame of the observer in the moving ship, the traveled distance of sound is still the distance between the bow and stern, but the traveling time is shorter. Therefore, measured by this observer, the speed of sound is faster. Hence, we never have a principle of the constancy of the speed of sound. We should just turn into
constancy of the speed of sound, people.
Hey, is there a constancy of the speed of sound? No?
Absolutely. Depends on what reference frame you're in.
No, so yeah, this is actually really good because it's giving Wang's giving some real insights into like the issue here, right? For like they made this special case scenario where they said that
Yep.
light doesn't interact that way because they tried to use light to measure motion, which they already knew that they could measure, right? They already knew they could measure translational motion when Fazal did the Fresnel drag experiment. So when they got to Michelson Morley, they knew exactly what they were doing.
Yep. Yep, because they were still using common sense as well. Like, oh, obviously we shouldn't just make a special case for everything in physics so
No,
we can make
dude.
sure that the Earth is moving.
Yeah, we're all told like, there was this great hurdle to overcome in physics to get people to believe in relativity, and it was like, why? Why was it such a, isn't it intuitive and beautifully mathematic or whatever? Like, no, it fundamentally goes against everything that was built upon, you know, just to explain, just to adhere to the Copernican principle is really what it all comes down to. So,
Yep. So, when the principle of the constancy of the speed of light asserts that in a vacuum, light always has a definite speed of propagation that is independent of the motion of the observer, it means the same as above. That is, not only the speed of light is c in the ECI frame, but also the speed of light is c for any observer, no matter whether the observer is moving or at rest relative to the ECI frame, and no matter how fast the observer is moving relative to the ECI frame. Now let us examine whether these are true, i.e., whether or not they are consistent with GPS observations. Sounds great. We can still use a similar example, the ship and the wave emitting buoy, just modify it in the following way. Mount a GPS receiver on each of the two ends of the ship, and the two receivers receive the GPS signals from a differential GPS station. To avoid the effect from the rotation of the Earth, the DGPS station and the ship are on the same meridian. Okay. We compare two cases. First, the ship is dead in water and the speed of the signal is measured by the observer on the ship. Then the ship steams at a full speed and the speed of the signal is measured again. Anyone familiar with GPS can quickly indicate that in the first case, the traveling time of GPS signal from bow to stern is L divided by C, where L is the distance from bow to stern. Then, in the second case, during the interval it takes the signal to traverse the ship, the stern will advance somewhat, although very short, toward the signal, shortening the effective length. Therefore, the propagation time of GPS signal from bow to stern is shorter than L divided by C. We can calculate these as follows. Suppose GPS signals are emitted toward a ship located at a distance from the DGPS station. When will the two receivers on the ship receive the signal emitted at T sub 0 from the source in the first case according to the propagation delay equation, figure 4A? So here we go right here. For receiver 1, which is, who was receiver 1? Huh. X1 minus 0 equals C times T1 minus T0. X1 minus equals L, hence T sub 1 equals T sub 0 plus L divided by C. For receiver 2, X2 minus 0 equals C, T2 minus T0. X2 equals L plus L. What was L again? Must be the
oh,
length
yeah,
of the bow, right? Yeah, okay.
yeah, length of the boat.
When the two receiver, okay, hence the propagation time from bow to stern is T2 minus T1 equals L divided by C. I'm not going to read all of this when we get to it. When the two receivers on the ship receive the signal emitted at T, what is this to be read as?
I would. I don't know. I wanted to say T prime, not, but I don't know.
Oh, you know what? I think you're right. Emitted at
Well,
T prime sub 0 from the source in the second case according to the propagation delay equation for receiver 1, for receiver 2. So he's adding the length here. And here. I think that's about it. Hence, T prime sub 2 equals T prime sub 0 plus L prime plus length of the bow divided by C plus V. Huh. No. Can't do that. The propagation time from bow to stern is T prime sub 2 minus T prime sub 1 equals L divided by C plus V. Therefore, according to the propagation delay equation, the propagation time of GPS signal from bow to stern in case 2 is shorter than in case 1. And the time difference between the two cases, delta T equals T sub 2 minus T sub 1 minus T prime sub 2 minus T prime sub 1 equals L divided by C minus L divided by C plus V equals V length of the bow divided by C squared, neglecting the quantities of the second and higher order of V divided by C. However, for an observer within the system, i.e. the ship, the distance between bow and stern is constant, L. Yep. It didn't contract. Thus, measured by this observer, the speed of light is not constant. Yep. Speed of light is not independent of the motion of the... let's downgrade those. Sorry. There we go. The speed of light is not independent of the motion of the observer relative to the ECI frame. This is what GPS tells us.
can you highlight that part too?
Yeah, good call.
Because
Change it.
GPS is like it wouldn't work without the relativity, which is based on what was that thing about the speed of light being the same in all reference frames,
Yep.
regardless
No,
of
that's
the
true.
motion of the
It's
source
true.
of the observer.
These guys are obviously wrong. We know that's true.
It's like they built an entire piece of technology around the fact that relativity is wrong, while kind of presenting it as if it works on the correctness of relativity.
Dude, I don't know, man. It didn't sound like that Ron Hatch guy knew anything about GPS.
Well, I think like in his long, like what was it, 40-year career of working in GPS, I think he just went crazy or whatever. Thought he could be the new Einstein. So that's where that's what happened. That Wang wants to be Einstein or whatever, but he's not as smart.
Yeah, it's not like what could you possibly do with an ether gauge theory that uses absolute space and time? Come on. Who cares? Who cares if it can make if it actually has predictive value that special relativity doesn't? So, the people who are familiar with special relativity would argue that the relativity of the simultaneity is an important aspect of special relativity.
Yeah,
They would.
not only
They would.
not only an important aspect of it, it's like really the crux of it, because when you get into link contraction and time dilation, they'll say that the link contraction is apparent relative to the velocity of the observer that's doing the recording. So they'll actually say that it's an apparent effect due to relative simultaneity, and that's why you can't measure it. So the fact that they don't account for relative simultaneity in GPS is a direct refutation to it, as it as it even existing, right? Because otherwise they would have to account for the fact that they can't establish a cohesive timeline to derive distances with the speed of light with. If that were the case, right, there would have to be cascading after the fact corrections to make everything make sense. So they say that GPS is a special case. There's a global simultaneity for some unexplained reason. I think I read one time that Earth's gravitational field, something, something, presents a precarious scenario where we have global simultaneity, and outside of the Earth's reference frame, outside of that gravitational field, there's relative simultaneity. So just, don't worry about this one in this case because it's just some localized effect, but when we get out to another reference frame, that's where the real relative simultaneity is at, even though saying that out loud directly refutes everything about relativity.
Yeah, so moving on. Well said. Now let us consider the relativity of simultaneity. In fact, the synchronization of the clocks is not needed here. Suppose the GPS receiver on bow has a clock bias of dude. Oh, that's oh man, I was just
Delta.
starting to learn them.
It's delta
Delta,
T.
thank you, sir. Delta T. Yeah, well, it looked all weird, but now I see. Suppose the GPS receiver on bow has a clock bias of delta T1, and the GPS receiver on stern has a clock bias of delta T2. Neither of the two clocks uses GPS time, nor are they synchronized with each other. Clearly, with these clock biases, the measurement in case 1 will not be T2 minus T1 equals L divided by C, but T2 minus T1 equals delta T2 minus delta T1 plus L divided by C. The measurement in case 2 will not be T prime 2 minus T prime 1 equals L divided by C plus V, but T prime 2 minus T prime 1 equals, that's delta, right? No.
That?
Yeah, that's delta, right?
Yeah.
Lowercase delta. Okay. Delta T minus 2 minus delta T1 plus L divided by C plus V. So, sorry, I'm just trying to see exactly. So he's just bringing the clocks in. Okay. Just like he did here. Will not be that, but that. Will not be that. Okay, so case 1 and case 2. Okay. Same as before. As for the time dilation, the rate change of the clocks caused by... Oops. The motion, the two clocks have the same rate change, so there will not be a net effect. Thus, the relativity of simultaneity will not change the conclusion. Another argument would be the Lorentz contraction related to the motion of the system. However, Lorentz contraction is a second order effect. Delta L equals L divided by 2 times V divided by C squared. The time difference measured here is a first order effect. Delta T, fun little guy, V divided by C to the first power?
Yep.
The heck is the first power?
I don't know, but that's what it that's what it is.
I never knew that was a thing, but I also don't know what the heck this thing is.
I was gonna say the infinity symbol, but it kind of looks like an open-ended infinity symbol. So keep
Yeah.
reading, and I'll look that up.
Mu. It says. Wait, no, I don't know. That's oh no, that's what dude, I think it might be a mu. I think it's a weird unicoded mu.
It means that the terms on each side are proportional to each other, and that one side is a constant multiple of the other side.
Oh. And then delta T. Oops. Maybe I scrolled down too far. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna go back to there and just keep going forward. And I was trying to catch what delta T was.
Delta T is the change in time between.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you, sir.
Yep, sorry.
No, you're good. Obviously, the second order Lorentz contraction could not change the conclusion either. So, yeah. I mean, let's highlight that.
So yeah, what he's pointing out there is that the second order effect is too insignificant to explain the first order effect of the fact that the speed of light is different. It's outside of the confines of a contraction mechanism to explain, similar to how the velocity of a local rotating interferometer doesn't produce enough length contraction to to justify a contraction in special relativity.
Got it.
Those pesky
People who are
first order measurements, man, and those first order effects. So
highlight this too. People who are familiar with the history of special relativity know that the constant c of the speed of light has its experimental foundation, as mentioned before, in the null result of the Michelson-Morley experiment. No, they were just testing if the ether was real, dude. Don't you know that? Haven't you talked to any of my Glober buddies? Therefore, they would question why GPS experiences they wouldn't question. You would think they would question that. You would think they would actually question things, but
no,
most people don't.
dude, they would immediately start strawmanning the you and then telling you like that this is wrong, and like they'll solve it in 2 seconds by misunderstanding it entirely. That's my favorite. It's like the instant proposed solution with no understanding of the implication, and it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's not gonna help, dude.
All right. In fact, the GPS experiences do not contradict the Michelson-Morley experiment. First, the Michelson-Morley experiment has never been conducted in a lab moving relative to the Earth. Oh yeah, because back in 1980, he proposed that they should go do a Michelson-Morley up in a satellite.
Yeah, I think he proposed they
I don't
do
know
it on
why.
the
That's just
ISS or
hilarious to
something
me.
too.
He's, but like, it's such a good point. Like, I just crack up because honestly, like for real, why wouldn't you do that? It would be such a slam dunk for them.
Listen, bro. I think the real answer is having an interferometer set up in an environment where you constantly have to do backflips for children while you're doing interviews for the press would be really complicated. So they don't do that kind of science there. They only do the kind of science where you look through a microscope to see how some bacterial microscopic organism may or may not be growing in a zero gravity environment.
Yep. And lots of fun. Yeah, lots of fun somersaults. That's for sure. And how to brush your teeth in space.
Yep, how to wash your hair, how to go to the bathroom.
Second, as argued above, the length contraction of the physical structure is all that is needed for the Michelson-Morley experiment to give a null result.
So he's saying when the speed of light measures a variance, they can just say, oh, well, thy apparatus was in the direction of motion, therefore it contracted, proportional to the velocity. As he was saying earlier, I have to go back, but he put it really well about how it's just an inverse relationship. I was kind of thinking about that earlier too. So you know how Einstein says, "Hey guys, no more absolute space. We're getting rid of that." But what does he do, Toby? He contracts absolute space proportional in one reference frame, and then it's backwards compatible with the stationary frame, where it's like he didn't he didn't not use absolute space. Think about it, dog.
Like, you can't do any of it. None of it exists
You
without making
literally,
reference to what actually happened in the lab frame.
dude, you literally can't even pretend.
You can't. You can't. You
It's
can't.
they're acting like they're not using it by curving a graph, but that's it. They're still doing it.
Yep. Oh, we got more here. Okay, cool.
It's inversely proportional to what it would be if they preserved the distance anyways. It's literally not even it's not even impressive. they just lied to everyone.
Yep. It's definitely not impressive. It's actually like very alarming when you look at the math, because there's only two possible reasons that they are saying what they're saying. One, they're absolutely lost their minds, or two, they are religiously obsessed with a deception. But in any case, the correct conclusion from the GPS propagation delay equation is that the ECI frame is the preferred frame near the Earth. The speed of light measured in the ECI frame is always c, whether the receiver is moving relative to the ECI frame or not. Finally, a pink highlight.
Yay.
When a GPS receiver changes its translational speed relative to the ECI frame, light does not change its speed relative to the ECI frame. Therefore, the speed of light relative to the receiver with respect to the ECI frame changes. Well, kind of true. Let's actually get that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean that's the Sagnac effect.
Yep. So here we go. Speaking of,
Oh, speaking of your boy.
Georges Sagnac in 1913 published a paper in which he showed that the speed of light relative to a detector on the edge of a spinning disk was a function of whether the light traveled with or against the rotation of the disk. The phenomena is the basis of all modern laser and fiber optic gyro compasses. The simplest interpretation of the result is that the speed of light remains constant relative to the center of rotation, and thus not the constant relative to the rotating detector. Thus not of constant speed relative to the rotating detector. Special relativity theory claims that the Sagnac effect is due to the rotation. Since rotation is not relative, the Sagnac effect can be due to non-isotropic light speed and still be consistent with special relativity. The effect of the movement of the receiver during the transit time of a GPS signal is referred to in the GPS system as the one-way Sagnac effect.
What?
What now? Hold on.
The one-way Sagnac effect. Come again?
That's like when you split your reference frame into two reference frames to do the thing that was illegal in the first frame.
However, it is not at all evident that the Sagnac effect is due to rotation. Ives claimed in 1938 that the effect is not due to rotation and proposed an experiment in which the light followed a hexagonal path. Ives claimed that the detector could be moved linearly along one side of the hexagonal path and the effect would still be present. Recently, Wang has proposed some first-order interferometric experiments, and their results will show that the Sagnac effect exists not only in circular motion, but also in translational motion. Well, that's a bold prediction.
Hey, yo, Toby, is that what the hexagonal light path? Is that not what the hollow fiber optic air core is?
Well, that's a funny thought there, Alan. Are you
Is-
telling me that Ives back in 1938 understood much better what modern physics understood things better than modern physicists?
Dude, Ives was a G, man. When you look into him, you'll find that he proved the correctness of special relativity through the transverse Doppler effect. But we're not gonna get into that here.
Oh,
But in short, you can't have a Doppler effect without the wave interacting with the medium. Ives knew this. Like this is why he was an ether lad. And after he did the experiment, it was co-opted to be a relativistic experiment, but it's actually the predictions are the same. Like there's no way to separate. So, but they just say that he predicted or that it's a relativity proof, and then they got him to flip his side and say that. But he was the one that debunked, or relativistic, or E equals MC squared. He pointed out, like, he showed that that wasn't a relative, that Einstein didn't derive that through his 1905 paper. Just kind of put it in there.
Grab this note real quick. Do you have this one? Is this one in the EndNote library?
Nope.
Cool. Throw it in my notes. All right. So at this point, we want to consider a number of claims that Ashby has recently made in regard to GPS and the Sagnac effect. We address 3 specific comments which Ashby made and respond to each below. Ashby claimed, the fundamental principle on which GPS navigation works is an apparently simple application of the second postulate of special relativity, namely, the constancy of c, the speed of light.
Yep. This dude Ashby went around for 20 years promoting this after the experiment he did in, I think it was 1985, the around the world Sagnac experiment.
Yeah, I recall going through that, or you pulling that one up in the past.
Yeah, they say
When we
that
were
they
going.
they say they confirmed the isotropy of the speed of light by the anisotropy of the speed of light. So, that's cool. That's cool.
Kind of like that hilarious chart of Mickelson Morley showing the literal opposite of what you should expect the results to be.
Yep.
The one where it's like expected in a stationary Earth, and it shows the result with movement, and then expected in a moving frame, and it shows a motionless result. Anyways, this claim has already been addressed above. Clearly, the GPS range equation does not depend on the constancy of the speed of light relative to the receiver, which is the SRT claim. Yes, the GPS equation depends on the constancy of the speed of light relative to the Earth-centered inertial non-rotating frame, but that is contrary to the special theory of relativity, or the special relativity theory. He loves to say that. Okay. A receiver moving in the ECI frame does not see an isotropic light speed of c.
Can you highlight Neil's claim and then the refutation from Wang?
I mean, it's kind of this whole thing here, huh? But
Yeah.
so
Yeah, just like have him say.
we'll do this in we'll do blue. Ashby's second claim is observers in the non-rotating ECI inertial frame, it's a little redundant, would not see a Sagnac effect. Instead, they would see that receivers are moving while a signal is propagating. This claim is a bit humorous.
They're just chilling while the wave's going by.
It would have been nice if this were the last claim in contention, since Ashby, in effect, concedes the argument here. Receiver motion during the... That's hilarious. Dude, seriously. Receiver motion during the transit time is the Sagnac effect. The only way that Ashby can claim that the Sagnac effect is not seen by a receiver in the ECI frame, while admitting that the receiver moves during the transit time, is to define the effect of a moving receiver differently depending on the description of the receiver's position. A bit of sophistry. The final claim by Ashby, which we contest, is, of course, if one works entirely in the non-rotating Earth-centered inertial frame, there is no Sagnac effect. The only way this claim can be true is if we adopt the definition of sophistry of the prior claim. but we have even more convincing data that Ashby's claim is false. Navcom Technology Incorporated has licensed software developed by the Jet Propulsion Lab, which, because of. Grab all this and highlight it real quick in blue. Finish that sentence. Sorry. Oh, here we go. Whoops. All right, I gotta fix this highlight. My bad. Wait. Oh, I skipped this earlier, didn't I?
Yeah, I think it dragged over. I highlighted the other page instead of scrolling down. Or I think you were
Oh.
supposed to scroll over instead of down.
Oh, I see. Okay, so. Has licensed his Navcom Technology Incorporated has licensed software developed by the Jet Propulsion Lab, which, because of historical reasons, does the entire computation in the ECI frame. Because of some discrepancies between our standard Earth-centered, Earth-fixed solution results and the JPL results, we investigated the input parameters to the solution very carefully. The measured and theoretical ranges computed in the two different frames agreed precisely, indicating that the Sagnac correction had been applied in each frame.
GG, man.
Yeah. Actually, let's make that red.
Yep.
And actually this all too. Oh, dang. I screwed... Or no, there we go. As of... Okay. All right, it's going to take me 1 second. I'm going to do this in blue. And then we'll start this in red. As the discussion of the Sagnac effect indicates, the fundamental question regarding the speed of light is the following. Is the speed of light constant with respect to the observer receiver, or is it constant with respect to the chosen inertial isotropic light speed ECI frame? That is the golden question, isn't it? Is
That-
is it relative for us in reality, or is it relative for the ECI frame, the hypothetical frame? Clearly, the GPS range equation indicates the speed of light is constant with respect to the chosen frame. The receiver position is in the range equation is the position at the time the signal is received. This means that the pattern of motion of the receiver during the signal transit time is completely immaterial. The receiver could have moved in a huge series of loops during the transit time. It would not matter if it is the receiver's position at the time of reception of the signal, which it seems so silly that they even have to like explain this stuff.
No, but kind of think about the arguments we've had though.
I know.
It's like baby steps, but also, I mean, this is it. Like the resistance you get is like, this.
It makes me laugh because it's just like, holy cow, like that's why I laugh at it, because I know that they literally will argue this crap.
It's like I know you won, but if I go back in time and pretend that you didn't win and I change the score that I won, then I won, right?
Yeah.
If I retroactively change the score. Yeah.
JPL was what again? Was this? Oh, Jet Propulsion Lab. Yeah.
Yo, what up,
The Jet
Eric?
Propulsion Lab equations. What's up?
Eric joined.
Oh,
What's
nice.
up?
Hey, Eric.
We're reading Wang and Hatch tonight.
So, the jet propulsion equations in equation 10 used to track signals from interplanetary space probes verify that the speed of light is with respect to the chosen frame. In the JPL equations, The chosen frame is the solar system barycentric frame. Huh. The motion of receivers during the signal transit time from Earth to probe and from probe to Earth is taken into account. Even if the motion of the Earth around the moon/center of mass is taken into account. Clearly, the Jet Propulsion Lab equations treat the speed of light as constant with respect to the frame, not as constant with respect to the receivers. In the GPS nomenclature, the one-way Sagnac effect must be accounted for in all signal paths. The other question one might ask is at what level curvature is important? If it is circular motion which causes the Sagnac effect, as Ashby claims, how much does the path have to deviate from a straight line to cause the effect? At Los Angeles, the Earth rotates about 27 meters during the nominal 70 millisecond transit time of the signal from the satellite to the receiver. The deviation of the 27-meter movement from the straight line chord distance is only 35 microns at its largest point. It certainly seems incredible that a 35 micron deviation from a straight line can induce a 27-meter change in the measured range. As a final proof.
It's peculiar.
As a final proof that it is movement of the receiver which is significant, not whether that the movement is in a curved or straight line path, a test was run using the highly precise highly precise differential carrier phase solution. The reference site was stationary on the Earth and assumed to properly apply the Sagnac effect. However, at the remote site, the antenna was moved up and down 32 centimeters at Los Angeles over an 8-second interval. The result of the height movement was that the remote receiver followed a straight line path with respect to the center of the Earth. The Sagnac effect was still applied at the remote receiver. The result was solved for position that simply moved up and down in height the 32 centimeters with RMS residuals which were unchanged, i.e. a few millimeters. If a straight line path did not need the Sagnac adjustment to the ranges, the RMS residuals should have increased to multiple meters. This shows again that it is any motion, not just circular motion, which causes the Sagnac effect. Crucial experiment of the constancy of the speed of light. To examine whether or not the speed of light measured in the system changes when a system changes its translational speed relative to the Earth-centered inertial frame, a crucial experiment could be conducted. It is crucial especially because in this experiment, simultaneity, or the synchronization of the clocks, is not a concern. This is very important because in any debate about the speed of light, the problem of simultaneity has always been a focus. Interesting. The crucial experiment, figure 5. Mount 2 atomic clocks with the same construction, signal transmitters, reflectors, and receivers on the two ends, points A and B, of a vehicle. Example given, a helicopter. First, the vehicle moves due south, eliminating the effect of the rotation of the Earth with the speed of v. I mean, come on, boys.
Dude, somehow
clocks-
somehow just going perpendicular to the direction of motion just completely eliminates like the displacement caused by the motion to begin with.
It's purely a rotational vector, trust us, but
Dude.
you only experience it explicitly in one vector with the speed of v. The two clocks are not synchronized with each other. A signal is transmitted from A at T1A according to clock A to B arriving at T1B according to clock B, and reflected back to A arriving at T prime sub 1A according to clock A. By the readings of clocks, we can calculate the difference of the nominal traveling times for the two directions. Delta T1 equals T prime 1A, T1B minus T1B minus T1A. We say that the traveling times T1B minus T1A and T prime 1A minus T1B are nominal because two clocks are not synchronized. For example, T1B minus T1A could be negative if clock B is too much behind clock A. Then let the vehicle decelerate, stop, and accelerate in the other direction. Finally moving due north with respect to speed v. We repeat the same measurement, and we will obtain delta t2 minus t prime 2a, or times a, minus t sub 2 times b, minus t sub 2b, or times b, minus t sub 2 times a. If the readings of the clocks show that delta T1 is different from delta T2, we think everyone would agree that the experiment refutes the principle of the constancy of the speed of light, especially noting that the relativity of simultaneity is not a problem here, because the synchronization of clocks is not required. If delta T1 is equal to delta T2, then the experiment verifies the constancy of the speed of light. This experiment is crucial because if the experiment shows that the speed of light in a system moving relative to the ECI frame is different from that in another system, we can invent a new kind of speed detectors that can measure the translational speed of the system relative to the ECI frame directly. Dude,
We can only invent it if everyone agrees on it, though.
holy cow, dude. It's just like, hey guys, can we just like figure it out and like, really just like be honest with each other about it so we can actually do some real crap with it?
No, let's figure out the best way to lie about it so we can maintain our belief in nonsense. Don't have to do any work. How about that?
Insane.
Can't you just show up to the interferometer station for 20 years and look for the algorithm and, not get excited when you get the detection? Keep going along to get along. Not proposing
love the
experiments.
I love like crucial experiment with two objects. Look how insanely childish it is. Just like, oh, we'll
Right,
go
but
one way, then we'll go the other way, guys. We'll see
then
what happens.
who is this for then, Toby? Right? Is this to present it? Is this to another scientist? Probably not. Right? Like,
Yeah, that's why I love these guys. They crack me up every time, dude.
I'm going to put a
Or I love
pictogram in my
Wang.
scientific research so you can understand the content of a helicopter real quick. Okay.
That's one hell of a helicopter, I'll be honest with you. Fact.
It is suggested in equation 12 that this experiment can be implemented by mounting two clocks not in one moving object, but in two separate objects. Example given, two helicopters. That move in a straight line, one after another, with the same velocity. This way, L, the distance between the two clocks, can be increased substantially, and hence, the possible time difference can reach several nanoseconds, with a value that is relatively easy to detect with current technology. Also, the effect of moving clocks, including time dilation, and the effect resulting from the fact that L is not strictly constant, are discussed there in detail, and it has been indicated that these effects will not prevail over the time difference we are trying to detect. In fact, delta t is the time difference of light propagation between two directions and between two cases. Therefore, even if the light paths of the two cases are slightly different, as long as the difference is not the same for both directions, the time difference will still exist. All right. Let's see. The Sagnac effect arises. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. The Sagnac effect arises because the motion of the receiver during propagation of the signal from transmitter to receiver, as mentioned above. If the Sagnac effect is positive when A is the transmitter and B is the receiver, then it is negative when B is the transmitter and A is the receiver. Figure 7A, the classic simple helicopter, my favorite. And vice versa in figure B. Okay, so here we go. So this way and this way. I see. Oh, look at those nice little arrows to show the vectors. Beautiful. Simple. So there you go. That's you can look at it like that, or you can also just kind of look at it like that.
I like the helicopters.
Me too. Therefore, the propagation times in two opposite directions are not the same, and the total time difference in the experiment is 4VL divided by c squared. It is a first order effect, and the Lorentz contraction, a second order effect is not a factor in the experiment. Yeah, well, I don't know, Wang. I don't think we need to waste time on your crazy experiments, bud. We're just gonna we already know what happened, what's real, and we don't need to do experiments. In the crucial experiment, first A is a signal source and B is a signal receiver. Then B becomes a source and A becomes a receiver. But it does not necessarily mean that we must mount transmitters to A and B. What we need are two signals, a signal that leaves A and arrives B, and another signal that leaves B and arrives A. Obviously, powerful airborne transmitters are expensive and not easily available. However, in GPS, there are already powerful transmitters in place, the transmitters in GPS signals and on ground stations. We can utilize the existing powerful transmitters to do the same thing we need for the crucial experiment. As a matter of fact, if the two GPS receivers A and B and a GPS satellite S1 okay, never mind. Are on the same straight line, the signal propagation time from A to B is the difference between the signal propagation time from S1 to B and the signal propagation time from S1 to A, if A and B receive the same signal from the satellite. Therefore, for conducting the crucial experiment, we do not need powerful airborne transmitters on A and B. We just need two GPS satellites, S1 and S2, on the horizon and put two airborne GPS receivers, A and B, on line S1, S2. Clearly, the crucial experiment will be greatly simplified. Oh, sorry for the stream. I was a little bit off the side there. Clearly, the crucial experiment will be greatly simplified by replacing airborne transmitters with the airborne GPS receivers when it's conducted in the global lab provided by GPS. We can conduct the crucial experiment with two airplanes. Don't like the helicopters? Let's do some airplanes. You can do it this way too, guys. Hold on, I'm gonna take a drink of water. Or he was talking about something different with that, but still, it's just a lot of the same thing, really.
That's some impressive mental gymnastics, honestly. I'm like, reminds me of Xanax, but way better.
It's like the opposite, right? It's just like, all right, we could show you how you're wrong this way, this way, this way, this way. Like, we'll just actually, this is kind of like the anti-Xanac, right? It's like Xanac, before you even talk, here's a Wang paper that's going to cover every possible route you could try and go with.
Anti-Xanax paper, yeah, exactly.
We can conduct the crucial experiment with two airplanes mounted with GPS receivers and two GPS satellites. All of them are in the same meridian to eliminate the effect of rotation of the Earth. One of the satellites could be a geostationary satellite. At first, two airplanes fly due south with a distance of L. Each GPS receiver records the arrival times of signals from S1 and S2. Then, at certain time, two airplanes respectively do a climbing turn or a regular turn, and then both fly north and record the arrival times again. When two airplanes return to ground, we can post-process the recordings and find whether or not there is a time difference between the two moving states, moving north and moving south. We can find this whole thing. So TSA.
The time of when it's
TS2.
moving north and south, the difference between them.
Thank you, sir. And since A and B are located on the straight line S1, S2, it becomes that equals delta T2 minus delta T1 in the crucial experiment. The expected time difference 4VL divided by c squared is proportional to the speed of the airplane's v and the distance between them, L. L mainly is restricted by the height of the flight path due to the curvature of the Earth. In meters, L equals 3,572 H1 to the power to the half power plus H2 to the half power equals 7,144 H to the half power if H1 equals H2 equals H. The possible flight heights and expected time differences are listed as follows. Height L. Okay. With the current GPS technologies, it is not difficult to decide whether these 10 nanoseconds or 30 nanoseconds time differences exist. Calculation of the crucial experiment. We can calculate the expected time difference in the experiment using complete range equation with the biases considered in the GPS. In GPS, see appendix. So here we've got airplane A and B flying out, doing a loop, coming back. S1 and S2 sending the signals. And then both airplanes receiving both signals from both satellites. That's not bad.
Yep. While going in the north-south direction.
Crucially, yeah, very crucial. So they don't have to deal, they can take out any of their rotation effects or whatever they want to try and claim. Yeah, it's pretty, that is a kind of, I can see why he would call it crucial. Even though, it's just going to more of the same, really. How many ways do you want to body bag it? Since it was desired that receiver A, receiver B, and S1 or S2 be on the same straight line, then a proper question will be how much position deviation is allowed, i.e., how much error will be induced if A, B, and S1 or S2 is in fact not in a straight line. This is a crucial part of the experiment. On the surface, if A, B, and S1 are not on a straight line, it will induce a large error. However, analyzing this problem carefully, one finds that contrary to what one might expect, any deviation of the position of A from S1B will cause only a small difference in the propagation time. Yeah. Okay. I mean, to me, that's common sense, right? It's funny, though, how you can't use common sense when it comes to the speed of light. The same time for the analysis of relationship between A, B, and S2. Suppose receiver A is not at the ideal position of A, but the position of A prime, and AA prime equals delta H, figure 9. The distance between S1 and A will change from S1A to S1A prime. What is the difference between these two distances? We have S1A prime equals S1A squared plus delta H squared to the half power. Hence, the difference between two distances, delta S1A minus SA prime minus S1A, is approximately equal to 1/2 times delta H squared divided by S1A. Since S1A is about 26,000 kilometers, we could have the following list. Delta H, delta S1A, or delta S1A, delta S1A divided by C. The effect of the transverse position deviation of one receiver. Yeah, so just a very minuscule difference, right?
As it turns out, yep. So yeah, it says
Receivers. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, it says right there, it's no noticeable deviation unless it's over 5 kilometers.
Another practical problem of the crucial experiment is that GPS satellites are moving and they change their position relative to the receivers during the test. What is the impact of this position change upon the test? A reasonable duration of the experiment is about 30 seconds. And in this short interval, the angle of a GPS satellite only changes by about 0.25 degrees or moves about 27 kilometers. The change in the position of the GPS satellite will cause another deviation from the straight line between A and S1B. The deviation is 27 kilometers times 700 kilometers divided by 26,000 kilometers is equal to approximately 0.74 kilometers. Obviously, it will not cause any noticeable error to the experiment. We also note that in normal GPS equations, those satellites that are only a few degrees above the horizon are not considered as usable satellites. But here, we use the GPS satellites at 0 degrees to the horizon. Is this a problem? No, it is not. First, we need a satellite on the horizon because that is required for it to be aligned with the line of sight between the two receivers. Huh. Huh. Sorry, this is interesting.
Oh yeah,
Second,
how GPS works off line of sight propagation.
yeah, no, it's just, I just was thinking about angles essentially and curvature
Oh
for some
yeah,
reason. That just really made me think about that. Uh, Second, we are not computing a position. We are only interested in the time difference between two arrival times at two receivers. Therefore, the tropospheric refraction associated with small elevation angles above the horizon is an effect which cancels when the difference is taken. As a matter of fact, this experiment is similar to differential GPS. Never heard of that one.
well, DGPS.
I'm assuming it's just
I think it's
using
like,
differentials.
yeah, it's like where they use what do you call it, like ground stations or whatever to cross reference. I think.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it seems like it's I would assume it's self-explanatory. I could be wrong, but that would make sense. Almost all the factors, satellite position bias, satellite clock bias, ionospheric delay, and tropospheric delay, which affect the accuracy of the GPS measurements, will be canceled when the difference in measurements is taken. Oops. Mm. Moreover, it is a multiple differential GPS experiment. Differences are taken between two receivers, between two propagation directions, and between two moving states. We can be sure that the experiment will have a high accuracy since most error sources are canceled in the differencing process. In the reality, the speed of an airplane will not be the same in two moving states, but this should not be a problem at all. Oh yeah, as we mentioned, what we need are two moving states, and in fact, any two moving states. Yeah. Having two states with the same speed but in opposite directions is just a convenient way to conduct and analyze the experiment. In fact, if two speeds v1 and v2 are used in the two opposite directions, the expected time difference is delta t equals 2l v. So Zanuck, yeah, it's going to be hard to have the planes travel the exact same speed, but it doesn't matter, Zanuck. Chill out.
Like how we can interpret this in terms of Zanuck for potentially worse his globe zealot downfall prematurely already taken care of, man.
Right. In order to avoid the effect of the rotation of the Earth, you got to imagine, Wang and probably Ron Hatch too. It really seems like Wang definitely has had his fair share of debates about this and frustrating discussions with professors or colleagues or whatever. He is very, very well versed in the relativistic apologetics of these things. It seems like the fact that he just goes to every nook and cranny of an excuse they could possibly come up
Dude, the
with.
relativistic apologetic sounds like a 12 edition library that I have to go download to be able to understand what he's talking about. Apologetics, that's amazing.
12 edition, seriously.
Go get version 1 of the apologetics. Yeah, I gotta go refer to that. Sorry.
In order to avoid the effect of the rotation of the Earth, we select a pair of satellites in the direction of north-south, and the motions of the airplanes are in the same meridian. Although here the satellite is not necessarily a... Wait, did I skip any of this? No, okay. Not necessarily a GPS satellite. It could be a GLONASS satellite or a WASS geostationary satellite. The selection of only north-south pairs of satellites presents a significant restriction on the selection of time at which the experiment can be conducted. If this restriction can be eliminated and a pair of satellites in any direction can be used, it will be much easier to find a time at which to conduct the experiment. In fact, a pair of satellites in any direction can be chosen. Zanuck. Or whoever, whatever glober it is. When we say Zanuck, if you don't know who that is, we're just saying any glober that will just come up with any possible argument, excuse, try and you'll argue with them for an hour about one thing, and then you'll show them why they're wrong, and then they'll have to realize that they're wrong, and instead of going and taking some time to read more or concede anything like that, they just immediately start arguing with a whole different point and just take you down a whole different rabbit hole as if you didn't just spend an hour in a different rabbit hole with them. So
But
just
he
for some
particularly
context.
he dismisses Wang entirely, right? Because I brought it up with him. So this particular aspect, when you can convert it from a rotational to a linear effect, complete adamant denial. Because once you admit that, the rest of it's over, right?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
his quote, isn't it? When he said, "If this was real, I would have to buy into the toroid and let go of the globe and
Exactly. So I'm gonna hang
become
on
a..."
Wang not being real. He's like, I looked at his paper. It doesn't work. I'm like, did you see the math? Because that's all that you should need, you moron, to see the kinematic derivation and the apparent equivalence, whatever. But I get why he wouldn't admit it, because that's if you admit that, then the rest of it's over.
Yep. So, when a pair of satellites is in an arbitrary direction is zoom out here. When a pair of satellites in an arbitrary direction is selected and the motions of the airplanes, pardon me, or actually, one second, I'm going to take a drink of water. Sorry. Anyways, selected and the motions of the airplanes are in the same direction, the velocity of the airplane relative to the ECI frame will have an added velocity caused by the rotation of the Earth. This velocity depends primarily on the latitude. This Earth spin velocity is no longer necessarily perpendicular to the direction of the flight. Therefore, it adds a component velocity, v1 cosine 0, or v2 cosine. That's not 0, is it?
What's
That's
that? No, theta.
Thank you, sir. v1 cosine theta or v2 cosine theta to the airplane's velocity relative to the center of the Earth. Figure 10. There you have it, figure 10. Oops. Simplified crucial experiment utilizing a pair of satellites in any direction. Generally, the component velocity is not small and cannot be neglected. But in the experiment, we only measure the difference between two motion states. Fortunately, the component of the Earth's spin velocity affects both motion states equally as long as the airplane is at the same latitude. Wait, what?
Wait.
Oh, latitude, not altitude. For some reason, I thought it was altitude. It still though is what? Yo, how does this work with their relativistic explanation of MGP?
Hold on. So fortunately, the component of Earth's spin velocity affects the both motion states equally as long as the airplane at the same as the latitude. So yeah, so they're saying that at 15 degrees per hour, it should have the same effect, right? As long as it's, it doesn't
Oh,
matter.
okay. It affects both equally. No, but as long as it's at the same latitude, though. So, what I'm kind of wondering about that is like, didn't with their relativistic explanation of Miglis and Gale Pearson, didn't they kind of have to infer that that how do they even? Because they have to infer that the first order measurement is proportional to 15 degrees per hour, right? At the equator specifically. Or I guess it doesn't matter, but the measurement at the equator would be related to 15 degrees per hour, right? But then if it changed with latitude,
Well,
they
they
have a
were
scaling equation for that?
plotting it against sidereal time, so they already had to have it broken up into 15 degrees per hour to complete a 360-degree rotation. And then they have the size of the ball, 24,000 miles. So they broke that into 1,000 miles at the equator and then slid that in there on the equation and said, ignore the first order velocity ratio that was measured and just look at how we're plotting it against sidereal time with a angular velocity that matches Earth's, Earth's diameter that we're using for sidereal time.
Okay, so gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So what he's saying here about these planes, though, is that as long as these planes are at the same latitude, there's not going to be a difference in the velocity effect, right? So, like, you know how when you're at the 40th latitude and versus if you were at the 35th, like the velocity difference would be, there would be a difference there because the Earth would be spinning slightly slower as you get closer to the North Pole.
Yeah. Do we have measurements of that?
Well, no, but that's their mythology. So that's why he's saying
Gotcha.
as long as they're in alignment with that, then you don't have to worry about a different velocity component for the quote unquote Sagnac effect, right?
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Let's change that highlight color. Therefore, the net effect of the component velocity caused by the rotation of the Earth is 0 in the experiment. Thus, while a pair of satellites in north-south direction is preferred, the experiment is not constrained by this restriction. And a pair of satellites aligned in any direction can be used. Conclusions. The strong evidence is that the constancy of the speed of light is wrong. The speed of light is not always c relative to a moving observer or receiver. Instead, the speed of light is always c relative to the chosen inertial isotropic light speed frame. A crucial experiment using GPS has been proposed to verify this claim. This isotropy of light speed relative to the chosen frame is strongly supported by the one-way Sagnac effect.
Dude,
Give that a
I
little
love
highlight.
that he calls it a one-way Sagnac effect.
Yeah, it's just like just to trigger people.
Just
It's so
straight in
good.
the face of it. And then for those relativists who still remain skeptical of GPS being a one-way measurement of the speed of light, and let alone the one-way measurement of the Sagnac effect, you can actually use a phase conjugate mirror to preserve the wavefront of the wave and send it back in its original orientation to see if the propagation is different. And it is, turns out. So
Who would have thought?
Dude, that reminds me of the guy dealing with the magnetic field, and he's like, I know it's a bipolar field, but since I've never seen the other one, we're gonna call this, instead of a unipole, a non-bipolar field that I'll deal with specifically. It's like, yeah, that's the same sort of reference frame. Got it.
Yep.
So, it is clear from the GPS range equation that the motion of the observer during the signal transit time implies that the speed of light relative to a moving observer is not isotropic and clearly differs from c due to the receiver motion.
Yeah, and you could find this in the modern what do they call them? GPS nav or cell nav manuals or whatever they're called, where they talk about how there's a Doppler frequency shift proportional to the velocity of the receiver. And like, obviously there's more to it than just a Doppler frequency shift. Like they're literally determining distances
Yeah.
based off of the propagation time. So because it's a time interval system. So the only implication that could also be corresponding to the velocity component in the Doppler shift that they're getting is that there's also that the speed is different, like the propagation time is different. It varies as well. And it has to match proportional to that Doppler frequency shift. Otherwise, how could that happen, right? So how could it be? Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, and just in case you maybe didn't want to trust Wang, you didn't want to trust Ron Hatch with all his accolades, you didn't want to trust like the IEEE documents that Paul Marmé references, or the international documents that he references. In case any of that isn't enough for you, also don't forget, Wang's reminding you here, this is also evidenced by the Jet Propulsion Laboratories space probe equations described by Moyer.
and also,
So in other words,
sorry,
go ahead.
Well,
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say real quick before we wrap up here that he mentioned earlier that when he was doing the JPL stuff and how they used the Berry Center. Well, Ron Hatch also, according to Bennett, pointed out that when he was at the JPL lab, he was talking to them and he was like, "Hey, where do you guys get your data at to derive the Berry Center anyway? Do you guys got any satellites up there or anything, any observation points where you're getting actual data to actually map out where the Berry Center is?" They were like, "No, we just get it from terrestrial observations." So to determine the Berry Center for their coordinate system that they're using for all this is they look at where things are at in the sky and they just like off center it from the center of the sun by like 1,000,000 miles. And they're like, "Oh, look, the Berry Center. Look, it's the center of gravity relative to the distribution of mass in the solar system versus the sun." And
Oh my God.
do you have any physical, tangible readings of that, guys? Like while we're, getting this real time data corresponding to all these references about a Berry Center and the gravitational mass for all this stuff? No. We're just deriving it from here, from Earth, from the geocentric position. We're deriving the entirety of heliocentrism from the geocentric position. Anyway, wanted to point that out.
Cool. Yeah, let's wrap it up here. So, In other words, the Sagnac effect is not due to rotational motion. Contrary to Ashby's claims, the Sagnac effect is caused by any motion of the observer or receiver relative to the chosen inertial frame. Let's go ahead and highlight that. The measurement of the travel time differences between two receivers in motion, first one way and then the other, can be used as a crucial experiment. Virtually, all of the measurement error sources are canceled by the multiple differencing involved in the experiment. This means that the proposed crucial experiment should be capable of easily resolving the fundamental question: is the speed of light constant relative to the receiver, or is it constant relative to the chosen inertial frame? I love that. Finally, assuming the crucial test verifies that the speed of light is constant with respect to the chosen inertial frame, it shows that a new method of measuring the velocity is possible. Specifically, measuring the time difference between the signal transit time in the forward and backward direction should give a direct measure of the velocity. So there you go. Now, if this was a Robert Bennett appendix, I'd probably dive in there, but I think we're going to not do this appendix tonight.
Oh no, you don't want to go read all those delta T's and delta C's.
Dude, when you read it, like it's funny. Like you read a sentence that's a line long. Please notice that here only one satellite is utilized, and read an equation this long. C delta
Therefore,
T equals
yeah.
C times TR minus TS times 1 minus C times TR. Like it takes so long to read through it. But in any case, yeah. So that's that. I'm gonna go ahead and close out. Wait. Acknowledgements. The University of Calgary simulated the scenario described in the section on the crucial experiment. We thank them for their effort in the simulation. Unfortunately, the precision of the transmit time was not sufficient to resolve the measured time differences to the precision needed. Oh, bummer. That's interesting.
Unlucky. Yeah, I was gonna say I thought there was ways that they could simulate all that because they've got all that stuff, but anyway.
So yeah, I'm gonna minimize the document, stop streaming. Before I close out the stream on my end, does anyone else have any questions, comments, thoughts? Final words? Thanks, Wang. Thank you, Ruyong Wang. Like, for real, wherever you are, whoever you are, I hope you got a big payout for everything you did from the NRL or whoever, the Navy, whoever. But I hope you keep putting out papers, body bag and relativity. And yeah, everyone listening in, next Tuesday, we're going to go through a little bit of the history of Ruyong Wang and all 12 of his papers. Not going to read all 12 of them, obviously, but just they kind of tell a story, a little bit of a timeline of a man questioning relativity and realizing that he was right to question relativity. So yeah, tune in for that next Tuesday at around 7 p.m. or that should be at 7 p.m. And thanks for listening. And yeah, take care, everybody.
Yep. Awesome outro, man. I'm gonna exit on that note and we'll just add one more thing to it. So tomorrow I'll be co-hosting Flat Earth Friday at hopefully 9 p.m. or maybe a little later, maybe a little earlier, but we'll be there. So check us out there. All right. Good night, everyone.